On Father's Day, my daughter handed her father-in-law a $13,000 cruise package and tossed me a $2 lottery ticket like I was some kind of beggar. She laughed and said, "If you win, Dad, remember half is mine." I smiled at her across my dining table, but inside, my heart was burning with anger I hadn't felt in 40 years. That worthless $2 ticket she threw at me won me $120 million. And I taught my daughter a lesson about respect she will never forget. Instead of half the jackpot, she got exactly what she deserved. Nothing. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Stephen Woods. I'm 68 years old, and I worked as a mechanic for 43 years in Columbus, Ohio. I raised my daughter Cara alone after my wife Linda died 8 years ago. I thought I taught her right from wrong. I thought I showed her what real love looks like. I was wrong. The truth hit me on Father's Day, sitting at my own dining table, watching my only child treat me like I was nothing. Let me tell you how I got here, because this story didn't start with betrayal. It started with love. My wife Linda died 8 years ago from cancer. Breast cancer that spread faster than the doctors predicted. Cara was 34 then, newly married to Eric, starting her own life. I was 60 years old, suddenly alone in the house we'd built together over 3 decades. The silence nearly killed me. Every morning I woke up reaching for Linda's hand, finding only empty sheets and cold pillows. But I'd survived worse. When Cara was 13, Linda had her first cancer scare. We got through it together, the 3 of us. I worked double shifts at Henderson's Auto Repair, 60-hour weeks, sometimes 70. I'd come home smelling like motor oil and transmission fluid, so tired I could barely stand. But I'd help Cara with her homework anyway, sitting at our kitchen table until midnight, making sure she understood her math problems and history essays. I put Cara through Ohio State University. 4 years of tuition, books, apartment rent near campus. I drove a 15-year-old pickup truck while my coworkers bought new cars. I ate peanut butter sandwiches for lunch while they went to restaurants. I didn't mind. That's what fathers do. You sacrifice for your children because their success is your success. The day Cara graduated, I sat in that stadium with 20,000 other people and cried like a baby. When they called her name. Cara Woods, Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration. My little girl, the first person in our family to finish college. She found me in the crowd afterward. Threw her arms around my neck, and whispered, "I couldn't have done this without you, Dad. You're my hero." I thought about those words a lot over the years. Your hero. Things changed after she married Eric. Slow at first, like a car engine developing a knock you don't notice until it's serious. Eric came from money. His father William owned an investment firm downtown. Their wedding cost more than I made in 2 years. I didn't complain. I wanted Cara to be happy. But Eric had different ideas about what mattered. Expensive cars, country club memberships, private schools, designer clothes. Cara started talking differently, using words like networking and appearances and investment opportunities. She stopped visiting my modest 3-bedroom house on Maple Street. Said she was busy with Eric's business associates and charity functions. After Linda died, I gave Cara authorized access to my bank account. Just in case of emergencies, I told her. If something happens to me, you'll need to handle things. She promised she'd never use it unless absolutely necessary. That was my first mistake. Trusting that my daughter still remembered what I taught her about honesty and respect. My retirement was simple. I lived on my pension and Social Security, about $3,200 a month. I worked part-time at the community garage, helping younger mechanics learn the trade. I had coffee every morning at Murphy's Diner where the waitress knew my order without asking. I played cards with my neighbors on Friday nights. It wasn't fancy, but it was honest. Then Father's Day arrived, and I discovered exactly how much my honest life was worth to my daughter. About $2. 3 days after Father's Day, I was sitting at my kitchen table doing what I'd done every Thursday morning for 40 years. Checking my bank statement. I'm old-fashioned. I know most people use apps on their phones now. But I like seeing everything laid out on my laptop screen in black and white. Every transaction, every dollar accounted for. That morning I had my coffee, my reading glasses, and my monthly budget. Spreadsheet open. The electric bill, $63. Grocery store, $112. Gas station, $45. Everything normal, everything expected. Then I saw a line. That made my coffee go cold in my mouth. Premium travel services. $13,643. I blinked. Read it again. The numbers didn't change. $13,643 charged to my account 6 days ago. Last Thursday, the day before Father's Day. My hands started shaking. I'd been nowhere near a travel agency. I hadn't booked any trips. I could barely afford my mortgage, let alone a $13,000 vacation. Then it hit me like a punch to the chest. Kara still had authorized access to my account. The emergency access I'd given her after Linda died. The access I'd completely forgotten about because I never imagined my own daughter would steal from me. I grabbed my phone, my fingers trembling so badly I misdialed twice. When her number finally connected, each ring felt like an eternity. "Hello, Dad." Her voice was cheerful, distracted. I could hear store announcements in the background. That polished female voice announcing sales and discounts. She was shopping. "Kara, I'm looking at my bank statement." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "There's a charge for over $13,000 from premium travel services." Silence. Then a laugh, light and casual, like I'd asked about the weather. "Oh, that. I bought Dad Eric his cruise tickets. He deserves something nice. For once." The words didn't make sense. I heard them, but my brain couldn't process what she was actually saying. "You took $13,000 from my account without asking." "I didn't take anything, Dad." Her tone shifted, becoming defensive, irritated. "I used family money for a family gift. You wouldn't have spent it anyway. It's just sitting there doing nothing. Just sitting there. My life savings. 43 years of working 60-hour weeks, skipping meals, driving broken-down trucks, sacrificing everything for her education and future. Just sitting there doing nothing. Kara, that's theft." The word came out broken. "You stole from me." "It's not stealing when it's family money," she snapped. "Eric has always been there for us financially. He helped us when we needed it. This is just returning the favor. You wouldn't understand because you've never had real money." I gripped the phone so tight my knuckles turned white. "I'm your father, Kara. I raised you. I worked double shifts to pay for your college. And Eric helped us move beyond all that," she interrupted. "He's shown us what real success looks like, what it means to be generous, to live well. Not hoarding money like some miser who's too scared to enjoy life." The cruelty in her voice left me speechless. This was my daughter. The little girl I'd taught to ride a bike, holding the seat. Steady while she pedaled down Maple Street, her laughter bright as sunshine. The teenager who'd cried in my arms when her mother got sick. The young woman who'd called me her hero. "Dad. Are you there?" "I'm here," I whispered. "Look, I know you're upset, but think about it rationally. Eric earned this. He's successful, he's contributed to our family's well-being. He deserves recognition. We'll pay you back eventually. Maybe by Christmas. The line went dead. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the phone, listening to the dial tone echo in the silence. My hands were still shaking. The bank statement glowed on my laptop screen, that $13,000 charge mocking me. On the counter, crumpled and forgotten, lay the $2 lottery ticket she'd thrown at me. Like garbage. The first thing I did after that phone call was call my bank. I revoked Kara's access to my account, changed my passwords, added security alerts. It took 15 minutes. 15 minutes to undo the trust I'd given my daughter 8 years ago. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 days later, my phone exploded with notifications at 6:30 in the morning. Text messages, Facebook alerts, missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I grabbed my reading glasses and opened Facebook, something I barely used except to see photos of my grandson Jake. Kara's post sat at the top of my feed, posted 45 minutes earlier, already shared 32 times. Having to write this breaks my heart, but I need support right now. My father has decided to cut off my access to what has always been our family money. After years of me being there for him, helping him through Mom's death, managing his affairs when he couldn't, he suddenly decided I'm not worthy of his trust. All because I bought Eric, who has been more of a father figure to our family than anyone, a gift with money that was sitting unused in an account. I never thought my own father could be so selfish and cruel. I read it 3 times, my coffee growing cold on the table. Every sentence was a lie wrapped in just enough truth to sound believable. The comments underneath made my stomach turn. Oh my God, Kara, I'm so sorry. Older people can become so paranoid about money. Your father should be grateful to have such a caring daughter. This is awful. Eric is such a wonderful man. He deserved that gift. Your dad is being ridiculous. Family money should benefit the whole family. Hang in there, honey. 47 people had liked the post. 47 people who believed I was the villain in this story. But Kara wasn't finished. She'd posted a video on Instagram, sitting in her car, mascara running down her cheeks in perfectly calculated streaks. I don't usually air family business like this, but I'm desperate. My own father has stolen my access to our family account and is punishing me for being generous to the man who's been more supportive than he ever was. Eric had joined the campaign too, posting on LinkedIn where his business connections could see it. Witnessing financial elder abuse is devastating. But reverse elder abuse, when elderly individuals become obsessed with money to the point of betraying their children's trust, is equally damaging to families. My wife is heartbroken by her father's greed. Reverse elder abuse. He'd made up a term that sounded official, professional, believable. By noon, the story had spread through our neighborhood like wildfire. The Nextdoor app featured heated discussions about the greedy lottery winner on Maple Street, even though nobody knew about the lottery ticket yet. They just knew I'd cut off my daughter's access to money she claimed was partly hers. I made the mistake of walking to the corner market that afternoon. Mrs. Patterson, who'd waved at me every morning for 15 years, suddenly found her roses fascinating when I passed. Tom Henderson, who usually stopped to chat about his grandson's baseball games, crossed the street to avoid me. 3 neighbors stood by my mailbox, clearly discussing the situation. When they saw me coming, they scattered like guilty children. My phone rang. Margaret, my younger sister, her voice tight with concern. Stephen, what in God's name is happening? My neighbor just called asking if you really stole Kara's money. It's all over Facebook. I explained everything. The theft, the cruise tickets, the phone call, Kara's lies. Margaret listened in silence. Jesus. Stephen. I'm so sorry. What are you going to do? I don't know, I admitted, looking around my quiet kitchen. The lottery ticket still sat crumpled on my counter where I'd left it after throwing it away in anger, then fishing it back out of the trash because even garbage felt too good for it. That worthless $2 ticket, bought with my own stolen money, mocking me from across the room. I had no idea that piece of garbage was about to change everything. 3 evenings after Kara's social media war began, I sat alone in my living room trying to distract myself from the isolation. I'd stopped checking Facebook. Stopped reading the neighborhood app, stopped answering my phone unless it was Margaret. I flipped through television channels without really watching. A cooking show featuring some fancy French dessert I'd never make. A sitcom rerun from the 90s. Local news discussing the city budget crisis. Then I landed on the Ohio Lottery Channel. Good evening, Ohio. Welcome to tonight's Powerball drawing where we have a rollover jackpot of $120 million. I almost changed the channel. What did I care about lottery? Drawings? But something made me pause. Maybe it was the absurdity of it. Here I was being called a greedy miser for protecting $30,000 in savings while someone was about to win more money than I could earn in 10 lifetimes. Tonight's winning numbers are. The announcer's voice took on that ceremonial tone they use for important moments. I watched the balls drop one by one. 7. I grabbed a pen from my coffee table without knowing why. 14. Something about those numbers tickled the back of my mind. 23. I started writing them down on the back of an envelope. 35. My hand froze. Those numbers sounded familiar. Disturbingly familiar. 42. And the Powerball is 18. The announcer repeated them cheerfully. 7. 14, 23, 35, 42, and Powerball 18. Congratulations to tonight's winner of $120 million. My heart started pounding before my brain caught up. I knew those numbers. I'd seen them recently. Stared at them long enough to memorize them in a moment of anger. The lottery ticket. Kara's $2 joke. I stumbled to my kitchen. My legs unsteady beneath me. The ticket sat on the counter where I'd left it after retrieving it from the trash 3 days ago. My hands shook as I picked it up. 7, 14, 23. 35, 42. Powerball 18. Perfect. Every single number matched. I sat down hard in my kitchen chair, the ticket trembling in my fingers. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like me. I was a 68-year-old retired mechanic who ate peanut butter sandwiches and drove a 12-year-old Honda Civic. I didn't win $120 million. I grabbed my phone and dialed the lottery hotline with shaking hands. The automated voice answered, professional and calm. Thank you for calling the Ohio Lottery Verification Line. To verify tonight's Powerball drawing, press 1. I pressed 1. The winning Powerball numbers for tonight's drawing are 7, 14, 23, 35, 42, with Powerball 18. The jackpot amount is $120 million. If you believe you have the winning ticket, please visit any Ohio Lottery Commission office for verification within 180 days. I hung up. Called back. Listened to the same message. Hung up again. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the ticket. I spread it carefully on my kitchen table, smoothing out the wrinkles from its journey through my trash can. Coffee stains marked one corner. A grease smudge obscured part of the barcode. But the numbers were clear. Kara's voice echoed in my memory. If you win, Dad, remember half is mine. She'd said it in front of everyone. My sister Margaret, her husband, my nephew Tommy and his wife. All witnesses to her casual cruelty. Her mocking laughter as she tossed that $2 ticket across the table like I was some kind of beggar. The same ticket she'd bought with my own stolen money. The same ticket she'd claimed half ownership of before I'd even scratched it. The same ticket worth $120 million. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table until sunrise, alternating between staring at the ticket and checking the lottery website on my laptop. Every time I looked, the numbers remained the same. 7, 14, 23, 35, 42, Powerball 18. Winner, $120 million. At 6:30 in the morning, I called the Ohio Lottery Commission office in downtown Columbus. A cheerful voice answered. Ohio Lottery Commission. This is Janet Chen. How may I help you? I said, my voice hoarse from no sleep, I think I have the winning ticket from last night's drawing. There was a pause, then professional warmth flooded her voice. Congratulations, sir. We'll need you to come to our offices for verification. Can you tell me your name? Stephen Woods. And Mr. Woods, do you have the physical ticket in your possession? I looked down at the stained, wrinkled piece of paper on my table. Yes. I have it. Excellent. How soon can you come in? I'm 68 years old. I'd worked since I was 15. 53 years of honest labor, calloused hands, and aching backs. I'd never won anything in my life except the respect of people who knew what hard work looked like. Now I was worth $120 million. And my daughter thought half of it belonged to her. The Ohio Lottery Commission offices occupied a modern glass building in downtown Columbus. I walked through the revolving doors at 9:15 that morning, clutching the lottery ticket in a plastic sleeve like it might disintegrate if I breathed on it wrong. Janet Chen met me in a private office on the 3rd floor. She was maybe 50, with kind eyes and the professional manner of someone who'd seen every possible human reaction to sudden wealth. Mr. Woods, she said, gesturing to a chair. Let me see the ticket. I handed it over, watching as she examined it under some kind of specialized light. She scanned it with a machine that beeped twice. Checked something on her computer screen. Scanned it again. This is quite a journey this ticket's been on, she said, noting the coffee stains and wrinkles. Found it in your trash. Threw it away in anger, I admitted. My daughter gave it to me as a Father's Day gift, but the circumstances were complicated. Janet nodded without judgment. We see all kinds of situations here, Mr. Woods. The important thing is verification. She smiled. And I'm happy to tell you that this is indeed the winning ticket for last night's Powerball drawing. $120 million. The words echoed in my head but didn't feel real. However, Janet continued, our verification process takes 48 hours for prizes of this magnitude. We need to confirm authenticity through multiple security measures, prepare legal documentation, and arrange for payout options. Can you come back Friday morning at 10? I nodded, unable to speak. Walking out of that building into the morning sunlight, I felt like I was floating 6 inches off the ground. I was halfway to my car when my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Woods? A measured voice, authoritative but not unkind. This is William Johnson. Eric's father. I believe we need to talk. My stomach dropped. Eric's father. This had to be about the lottery ticket. Maybe they were already organizing their legal strategy. I'm not sure what there is to discuss, Mr. Johnson. There's quite a lot, actually. A pause. Could we meet this morning? Murphy's Diner on 5th Street in 1 hour. Murphy's Diner was my regular breakfast spot. The kind of place where coffee came in thick white mugs and the waitress knew everyone's order. Why Eric's wealthy father wanted to meet there, I couldn't imagine. May I ask what this is about? The lottery ticket, William said simply. And what I witnessed on Father's Day. My heart hammered. You were there. I was indeed. 1 hour, Mr. Woods. William Johnson stood out in Murphy's Diner. Like a diamond in a toolbox. His navy suit probably cost more than my monthly pension. But when he shook my hand, his grip was firm and honest. We sat in a booth by the window. Doris, the waitress who'd served me coffee for 10 years, poured 2 cups without asking. I witnessed the entire gift exchange on Father's Day. William began without small talk. Every word, every gesture. Your daughter handed you that lottery ticket and explicitly called it your Father's Day gift. There was no negotiation, no agreement about splitting winnings. It was a gift, pure and simple. I studied his face, searching for the trap. You're Eric's father. Why would you go against your own son? William's expression hardened. Because I raised him to have integrity, and he's forgotten everything I taught him. This lottery situation has revealed something about Eric that deeply disappoints me. He pulled out his phone, began typing. I'm going to set the record straight. My name carries weight in this community, Mr. Woods. People know I don't lie about business matters. I watched him compose a Facebook post, his fingers moving with surprising speed. As a witness to the Father's Day gathering at Stephen Wood's home, I feel compelled to address the current social media controversy. I personally observed Cara Johnson purchase and present a lottery ticket to her father as a Father's Day gift. There was no negotiation, no agreement about sharing winnings, and no conditions attached to the gift. Mr. Woods is the rightful owner of that ticket and any winnings it may have generated. The current social media campaign against him is based on false information, and I cannot remain silent while a good man's reputation is being destroyed by members of my own family. You don't have to do this, I said quietly. Yes, I do. William's finger hovered over the post button. My son has forgotten what it means to be a man of honor. He pressed post. Within minutes, his phone buzzed with notifications. Comments from business leaders, colleagues, people who respected William's reputation for honesty. This changes everything, I breathed. William pocketed his phone and looked at me directly. Mr. Woods, I built my business on integrity. I can't watch my son destroy that legacy with lies. We shook hands outside the diner. As he walked toward his black Mercedes, I stood by my modest Honda, feeling something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope. Friday morning arrived with the kind of nervous energy I hadn't felt since my wedding day 45 years ago. I put on my navy blue suit, the one I'd bought for Linda's funeral 8 years back. White shirt, pressed crisp. And the tie Cara had given me for Christmas 5 years ago, back when she still remembered I existed. The irony wasn't lost on me. The Lottery Commission headquarters buzzed with activity when I arrived. Television crews adjusted lighting equipment. Photographers tested angles. Reporters checked microphones. I felt like I'd walked onto a movie set where I didn't know my lines. Mr. Woods, Janet Chin approached with a warm smile. Ready to become a millionaire? The ceremony was more formal than I'd expected. A backdrop featuring the Ohio Lottery logo. An oversized check so big it took 2 people to hold. Enough camera flashes to light up a stadium. When Janet announced me as the winner of the $120 million jackpot, the applause felt surreal, like it was happening to someone else. She handed me a microphone. I looked out at the cameras, the reporters, the lottery officials in their professional suits. This is certainly unexpected, I said, my voice carrying better than I'd hoped. I plan to use this blessing responsibly. To help others who deserve it. To pursue dreams I'd put aside. And to live with dignity and integrity. The reporters fired questions rapidly. How did it feel to win? What were my plans? Would I quit working? I answered as honestly as I could, focusing on gratitude rather than the family drama that had brought me here. Then, through the crowd of media personnel, I saw them. Kara and Eric pushed through the gathering, her face flushed with desperation and determination. She wore a designer dress, her hair and makeup perfect, like she'd prepared for this moment. Stop. Her voice cut through the professional atmosphere like a knife. That's my ticket. We had an agreement. Security personnel moved immediately. But Kara's voice carried over their intervention. Everyone here needs to know that ticket was mine. He's stealing from his own daughter. The cameras, which had been focused on me and the ceremonial check, swiveled toward the commotion. This was the kind of drama television news lived for. Ma'am, you need to step back, a security guard said firmly but politely. I looked directly at Kara. Feeling calmer than I had in months. Kara, please don't do this here. But she was beyond reason, gesturing wildly as Eric tried to pull her back. I bought that ticket. I said half was mine. Everyone at that dinner heard me. A reporter thrust a microphone toward me. Mr. Woods, can you comment on this family dispute? The ticket was a Father's Day gift from my daughter, I said clearly. My voice steady despite the chaos unfolding nearby. Mr. William Johnson, who was present at the dinner, has already confirmed the circumstances of that gift on social media. That's all there is to it. What do you plan to do with the money? Another reporter asked. I thought about Kara screaming in the background. About the months of manipulation and betrayal. About the years I'd spent enabling her worst impulses out of misguided love. I plan to help people who deserve it, I said. People who understand the value of hard work and honesty. I want to pursue a dream I've had for years. And I intend to live with the kind of integrity that makes a person worthy of good fortune. The ceremony concluded with handshakes and official paperwork while Kara and Eric stood by their white BMW in the parking lot, arguing with each other. I could see Eric's gestures growing more animated, his voice rising to match hers. Their perfect marriage cracking under the weight of their own greed. I walked to my Honda carrying the ceremonial check and official documentation that made me one of the wealthiest men in Ohio. As I drove away, I glimpsed them in my rearview mirror. Still arguing beside their expensive car, their voices carrying across the parking lot. For the first time in months, I smiled. Not because I'd won $120 million. But because I finally understood that some people show you who they really are, and the kindest thing you can do is believe them. The next morning, I was sitting at my kitchen table with the newspaper spread before me, reading about my lottery win in black and white print, when I heard a car door close outside. Through my window, I saw Kara walking up my driveway. But everything about her was different. No confident stride. No designer sunglasses. No perfectly styled hair. She moved slowly, hesitantly, her shoulders slumped. Her clothes looked wrinkled, like she'd slept in them. When she reached my door, instead of her usual bold entrance, she knocked softly. 3 gentle taps that sounded almost apologetic. I opened the door to find her eyes red-rimmed and puffy. Mascara smudged beneath them. "Dad," she whispered. "Could we talk? Please." Against every instinct screaming at me to close the door, I stepped aside. "Come in, Kara." She followed me to the living room, perching on the edge of the couch like a bird ready to take flight. Her hands twisted in her lap as she looked around the modest space that had once been her childhood home. "I'm so sorry about yesterday," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. I was overwhelmed and scared. I wasn't thinking clearly. The tears came then, streaming down her cheeks with practiced precision. Eric has been pressuring me so much about money lately, she continued. Our finances, they're worse than I told anyone. I didn't know who else to turn to. I settled into my recliner, maintaining careful distance. What kind of financial trouble, Kara? We're about to lose our house. Her voice broke on the words. The mortgage payments, the credit cards, Eric's business investments. It's all falling apart. We owe almost $400,000, and the bank is starting foreclosure proceedings. She painted a picture of sleepless nights, panic attacks, desperate attempts to keep up appearances while their world crumbled. Eric's investment firm was failing, losing clients, hemorrhaging money. The country club membership they couldn't afford to cancel. Jake's private school tuition draining their resources. I was too embarrassed to ask for help before, she said, wiping her eyes. You know how proud Eric is. He'd die if he knew I was here begging. I watched her performance, and it was a performance, I realized. The same techniques she'd used as a teenager when she wanted something. The tears, the helpless routine, the appeals to my protective instincts. You've always been there for me before, she said, reaching across to touch my hand. I just need help one more time. Just enough to save our house. How much, Kara? $2 million would solve everything. She said it quickly, like she'd rehearsed the number. It sounds like a lot, but it's nothing compared to what you won. You'd still have over 100 million left. The simplicity of her request was breathtaking. $2 million delivered as casually as asking to borrow $20 for gas. Kara, I said gently, you stole $13,000 from my account without asking. You publicly humiliated me on social media. You tried to claim my lottery ticket by force. Now you want me to reward that behavior by giving you $2 million. This is different. The tears came faster, more desperate. I was wrong before, I admit that. But we're talking about losing everything, Dad. Our house, our life, Jake's education. You need to learn to solve your own problems. Her face transformed, the mask of vulnerability slipping to reveal something harder underneath. Fine. But don't expect to be part of Jake's life. Going forward. No Christmas visits, no family dinners, no phone calls when he graduates. You'll die alone in some nursing home with nobody who cares. If that's your choice, I said quietly. I'll have to accept it. The finality in my voice shocked her. She stared at me for a long moment. You've changed, she said coldly. Money has made you cruel. No, Kara. Money has made me free. She stormed out, slamming my door hard enough to rattle the pictures on my walls. I watched through the window as she peeled out of my driveway, tires squealing. I turned away and made myself a cup of tea, my hand steady. The little girl who used to fall asleep in my lap was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize and couldn't save. And that, I finally understood, was not my fault. After Kara left, I sat in my quiet living room with my cup of tea, watching the steam rise in the afternoon sunlight. My hands were steady. That surprised me. After everything that had happened. After years of anxiety and manipulation and guilt, my hands were finally steady. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Kara's contact. My finger hovered over her name for just a moment. Then I selected block this number. No anger. No dramatic gesture. Just a calm, clear decision. Some bridges, once burned, aren't meant to be rebuilt. My phone rang an hour later. Margaret. Stephen, are you okay? Kara called me crying, saying you refused to help them with their mortgage. I told Margaret everything. The manipulation attempt. The $2 million demand. The threats about Jake. Good for you, Margaret said quietly. I'm proud of you, Stephen. Mom and Dad would be proud too. That night, I started packing. Not everything, just the essentials. I'd lived in this house for 32 years. Raised Kara here. Buried Linda from here. Every room held memories, some beautiful, some painful. In the hallway, I paused at the family photos. Kara at 7 years old, holding an ice cream cone, her smile bright and genuine. That little girl had been real once. I chose to remember her instead of the woman she'd become. I took the photo off the wall and packed it carefully. The next morning, I called a realtor. By afternoon, I'd put the house on the market. By evening, I'd found a small town 2 hours away where nobody knew my name or my bank account. Dayton, Ohio. Population 60,000. Far enough from Columbus that unexpected visits would require real commitment. I was 68 years old, worth $120 million, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could finally breathe. Starting over wasn't giving up. Sometimes, starting over was the bravest thing you could do. 3 months later, I stood in an empty garage bay in Dayton, Ohio, breathing in the familiar smell of motor oil and old metal. Henderson's classic auto restoration had been for sale for 6 months. The owner, a 72-year-old man named Tom Henderson, wanted to retire to Florida. When I walked through his shop that first day, running my hands along a 1967 Mustang's fender, I knew I'd found what I'd been searching for. Purpose. You sure you want this much work? Tom asked, gesturing at project cars filling 5 bays. Most folks your age are thinking about slowing down. I smiled. I'm just getting started. Within a week, the shop had a new name. Wood's Classic Auto Restoration. I hired 3 local mechanics, all good men who knew their way around an engine. We worked on classic American cars. Mustangs, Camaros, Corvettes, Chevrolets. The kind of vehicles that represented honest craftsmanship. But the shop was only part of my new life. I established the Supporting Single Fathers Foundation with a $5 million endowment. The mission was simple. Help men who were raising children alone, the way I'd raised Kara after Linda died. Men who worked double shifts and ate peanut butter sandwiches and drove broken-down trucks because their kids needed new shoes. The foundation's first grant went to a man named Robert Martinez. 38 years old, father of 3 girls, wife died of cancer 2 years earlier. He worked as a janitor at the elementary school, 60 hours a week, barely making rent. When I handed him the check for $15,000, enough to cover 6 months of expenses while he trained for a better job, he broke down crying in my office. I don't know what to say, he whispered, staring at the check. I've been praying for help. You don't have to say anything, I told him. Just help someone else when you can. Evenings in Dayton were peaceful. I could walk to the corner diner without whispered conversations following me. My neighbor Helen brought homemade cookies and welcomed me to the neighborhood. The local hardware store owner knew my coffee order. Within a week, nobody here knew about the lottery. Nobody cared about my bank account. I was just Stephen Woods, the guy who restored classic cars and helped single fathers. One evening, a letter arrived with no return address. The handwriting was young, uncertain. Grandpa, I'm sorry for what Mom and Dad did. I miss you. I hope you're happy wherever you are. Love, Jake. I read it 3 times, my chest tight with emotion. My grandson, 16 years old, brave enough to reach out despite his parents. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my desk drawer. Someday, when Jake was old enough to make his own choices, we'd talk. But not yet. He needed to grow up first, away from his parents' influence. For now, I had work to do. Cars to restore. Fathers to help. A life to build based on something more meaningful than money. I was 68 years old, and I'd never been happier. The lottery ticket hangs framed in my office now. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Sometimes the most valuable gifts come disguised as garbage. Sometimes the most necessary lessons come wrapped in pain. I learned something important through all of this. Setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's self-respect. Saying no to manipulation isn't abandoning your family. It's refusing to enable their worst behaviors. For years, I thought being a good father meant sacrificing everything, accepting any treatment, forgiving any betrayal. I was wrong. Being a good father also means teaching your children that actions have consequences. That respect goes both ways, that love without boundaries isn't love at all. The money didn't change who I was. It revealed what had always been there underneath. Character. Integrity. Dignity. Those things don't come from a bank account. They come from how you treat people when nobody's watching, how you respond when you're wronged, how you choose to live when you finally have choices. Kara made her decisions. I made mine. I chose peace over pretense. Dignity over dysfunction. Self-respect over guilt. And you know what? I sleep well at night. If you're watching this and you've been betrayed by someone you loved, someone you sacrificed for, someone who took your kindness for weakness, I want you to know something. It's not your fault. You can't control how others treat you. You can only control how you respond. And it's never too late to start over. I'm 68 years old, and I built an entire new life from scratch. You can too. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to John's Revenge Stories. Hit that like button. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to cut off a family member who betrayed your trust? What happened? Your story might help someone else facing the same decision. Every restored car in my shop, every grant from my foundation, every peaceful evening in my new home, these are votes for a world where character matters. More than connections, where integrity beats inheritance, where doing the right thing eventually leads to the right outcome. That $2 lottery ticket brought me $120 million. But the real fortune was learning to value myself enough to walk away from people who didn't. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm Stephen Woods, and I finally learned what freedom really means.